Hello, and welcome to this pre-recorded event for the Extended Project Dissertation Unit. To help you get the most out of this feedback, you may want to have the following documents handy, as we will refer to them during the session. The Extended Project Specification and the Summer 2015 Examiner's Report. The presentation will refer to 3 exemplar projects: Joel, Isobel, and Kirsty. You should download these from the Edexcel website before proceeding further. The aims and objectives of this event are to receive feedback on national performance of candidates, discuss the examiner's report, find out about further support available, address common issues and FAQs. Students who chose topics which allowed in-depth research as well as consideration of argument and counter-argument tended to produce the strongest pieces of work. The best students provided logs containing reflective detail about issues encountered and evidence of the management of ideas, although some still provided little more than a short list of activities. There needs to be evidence of monitoring of progress against timescales given in Section 3 of PPF. The strongest activity logs are not necessarily the longest. What is looked for is thoughtful reflection about the project process, with consideration of problems and solutions. Pause the presentation and look at the exemplar project produced by Joel. Look at the A01 evidence. This can be found on pages 2 to 3, the abstract and introduction, and pages 27 to 52, the proposal form, activity log, and supplementary planning sheets. Joel's project was placed high in Mark Band 3 for A01. It contained a detailed project proposal form. There was evidence of refinement of the research question. There was clear evidence of planning. The project contained a timeline with appropriate intervals, and it was clear that there was very strong time management with continued reflection and planning. In A02, the best students submitted maturely written literature reviews. Some students had obviously been taught a style for references, such as Harvard referencing, whilst others had not been given sufficient guidance in this area. Students would be well advised to avoid extensive quotations from sources, as the assessed skill in A02 is the ability to analyze and synthesize research from a variety of sources. It is expected that students will provide evidence that they have considered the reliability of their sources. Often, this can be done by the inclusion of a footnote containing a short commentary when the source is used for the first time. Pause the presentation and look at the exemplar project produced by Joel. Look at the A02 evidence. This can be found on pages 5 to 11 for the literature review, pages 12 to 21 for the discussion, and pages 24 to 25 for the bibliography. Joel's project was placed in mid-Mark Band 3 for A02. It showed evidence of excellent investigation of a range of sources. This was present in both the literature review and the discussion. It was well referenced and contained an appropriate bibliography. There was detailed source evaluation and awareness of issues of bias and reliability. In the strongest projects, students engage in argument with careful systematic consideration of counter-arguments. There is also response to counter-arguments. A connected chain of thoughtful evidence-based argument and counter-argument characterizes many of the most successful projects. Some projects explore different interpretations of material. In these, there should be consideration and evaluation of a range of alternative interpretations. Pause the presentation and look at the exemplar project produced by Joel. Look at the AO3 evidence. This can be found on pages 12 to 21 for the discussion and pages 22 to 23 for the conclusion. Joel's dissertation was placed in mid-mark band 3 for AO3. It is clearly structured and well written. There is evidence of thorough and perceptive understanding of the topic throughout. Whilst there is not much clear consideration of counter-arguments, there is consideration of alternative interpretations. In AO4, the normal expectation is that candidates will submit a written evaluation of the project process. This provides evidence which, taken together with the teacher assessor's remarks on the oral presentation, supports the mark for AO4. Oral presentation mark record sheets were often helpfully filled in, providing evidence of good performance in this area. In successful project evaluations, students show a high level of insight in evaluating the project and the extent to which they have achieved their aims. They identify and analyze in detail the limitations of their project's methodology and interpretations. They explain and justify ideas for what they could do differently next time. They draw clear and perceptive conclusions about the process of researching and writing a dissertation that could help them in future. Pause the presentation and look at the exemplar project produced by Joel. Look at the AO4 evidence. This can be found on pages 22 to 23 for the evaluation and in the oral presentation records at the start of the project. There is a mature, though somewhat brief, reflective written evaluation. Joel identifies limitations and possible alterations with precision and insight. The center assessor reports that there was further evaluation in the oral presentation. Joel was placed in mark band 3 for AO4. Students who choose titles which lead to largely descriptive responses instead of ones which encourage engagement in argument tend to score less well. Weaker AO1 scores tend also to be associated with activity logs, which simply describe activities, rather than showing evidence of ongoing reflection on the project process. Pause the presentation and look at the exemplar project produced by Isobel. Look at the AO1 evidence. This can be found on the first few pages of the project, for the project proposal form, pages 3 to 5 for the abstract and introduction, and on pages 24 onwards for the planning documents and log. Isobel's project proposal form contained a basic plan of activities. Her log was clear, but lacked much on problems and solutions. Her project was therefore placed in mark band 2 for AO1. In the middle or low mark bands, research tends to consist of summaries of sources. The range of sources is smaller, there is less depth of investigation, and the quality of referencing is low. Source evaluation tends to veer towards discussion of the utility of the source, rather than the status and credentials of the author. Pause the presentation and look at the exemplar project produced by Isobel. Look at the AO2 evidence. This can be found on pages 5 to 12 for the review, pages 13 to 20 for the discussion, and page 23 for the bibliography. In Isobel's project, the source evaluations focus on utility, not reliability. There is some analysis and synthesis of sources in discussion. There are good references and an appropriate bibliography. The project was therefore placed high in Mark Band 2 for AO2. In AO3, the best projects showed evidence of the construction of good lines of argument, with systematic consideration of counter-argument. In weaker dissertations, evidence is laid out and then debated very briefly in the conclusion. Weaker dissertations therefore feel more like essays. Guidance on the differences between a dissertation and an essay is available on the project website. Pause the presentation and look at the exemplar project produced by Isobel. Look at the AO3 evidence. This can be found on pages 13 to 20 for the discussion and pages 21 to 22 for the conclusion. There is some argumentative development, some alternative interpretations considered, but there is not much counter-argument. The project was placed high in Mark Band 2 for AO3. In the summer series, weaker project evaluations tended to be brief or omitted entirely. Weaker evaluations are often characterized by generic comments that do not address specific points which have been learned from the project process, or by comments which do not show much insight into limitations, lessons learned, possible alterations, or the extent to which objectives were met. Pause the presentation and look at the exemplar project produced by Isobel. Look at the AO4 evidence. This can be found in the oral presentation records at the start of the project, and on pages 21 to 22, the evaluation. In the written evaluation, more detail is needed about limitations and lessons learnt. However, the teacher assessor reports that during the oral, Isobel reflected well on the project, so a position in Mark Band 3 for AO4 is supportable here. The following points explain some of the characteristics of less successful projects. Students tended to choose titles which did not lead into in-depth research and exploration of argument and counter-argument. Research consisted chiefly in collecting information, and there tended to be less analysis of sources. Some students underestimated the demands of completing their project. Project work could be improved by ensuring that students are taught skills in project management, research, and the development of argument before beginning their projects. You may now wish to pause the video to carry out this optional marking activity. Using the mark scheme and the exemplar entitled Kirsty, decide what bands you would place this project in for AO1, 2, 3, and 4. Here are the moderator's comments on Kirsty's project. Common issues encountered include questions which do not encourage students to enter into argument, but lead to purely descriptive writing, a lack of appropriate referencing and bibliography construction, a lack of evaluation of the reliability of sources, failure to develop a line of argument or give consideration to counter-arguments, limited evaluation of the project process. Reminding students to choose appropriate questions, to reference sources and evaluate their reliability, to engage in argument and counter-argument, and to give a full evaluation of the project process can help to address these common issues. If you would like to know more about examination statistics, You may find these links of interest to you. GCSE English subjects and maths are changing for first teaching in September 2015, with first assessments in summer 2017. GCEs for a range of subjects are changing for first teaching in September 2015, with first assessments in summer 2017. We have just published our specifications on the edXL website. They have been published early in draft form to enable teachers to have early sight of our proposed approach. We are also running a series of launch events too. Our draft specs and SAMs, as well as further information about our launch events, can be found on edxl.com. Other GCSE and GCE subjects will follow in 2016 and 2017.